All right, everybody, welcome to Follow Up Boss Office Hours here on this lovely solstice day, summer solstice. Quite excited. Also excited to be hanging out with my friend Katie Isaac. What's up, Katie?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's always fun to do these with you and dig into Follow Up Boss stuff and try to help people use it even more.
Couldn't agree more. I know it's always it's always nice. It's like so fun. I feel like I just love getting to share with everybody and be
Absolutely.
able to just like dive in and give those little bits of nuggets that are easily missed. I know we were talking already. There's quite a bit that's like easily missed in this conversation, so excited to share with y'all.
For sure. Yeah. So today we're talking about using filters and smart lists to customize your follow-up boss. And again, to your point, Katie, it's pretty basic stuff. But before we hit go, you and I both were like, I didn't even know that until a few years ago. So, and on top of that, there's always new features, new things added. So,
Mhm.
whether you're here as a refresher and kind of know this really well, or you're super new to follow-up boss, we got you covered today. So, at a high level, Katie, well, first off, why don't you give a little background? What do you do at Follow Boss? What do you do before that that is relevant and all that good stuff?
Yes. So Katie Isaac here. I am a customer success manager here at Follow Up Boss. I work with our platform teams. So our larger teams here. Prior to working at Follow Up Boss, I was actually a realtor myself. So have experience on the other side of things. Hello, Luke. Looks like you're joining us from British Columbia and Alberta. I'm located up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. So we are just starting our beautiful summer, and I am absolutely pumped for it. So that is a little bit about me, but really excited to share with you guys about Smart List because when it comes to Smart List, and if you were to ask me like, Katie, what do you wish you would have had when you were a realtor? It is this. My team did not use Follow Up Boss. And ever since coming to Follow Up Boss and having the opportunity to obviously learn the system and understand the system, I am like, holy crud. If there is one thing within this system that would have changed my life, changed my workflow, and changed my ability to actually build my pipeline, nurture my pipeline, especially during those busy months, it would have been SmartList. So I'm really excited to share about this because, in my opinion, it is one of the biggest features for agents to be able to utilize to really elevate their business.
Definitely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's why we lean into it so hard too. Such a good product. Simple to use, but powerful, cool customizations you can do. So, yeah, let's go ahead and share screen and dive in. I think first, well, first off, why does this matter? Like, why does smart list and sorting all this? Why do we need to do that? Like, what's the point? Like,
Yeah. So, well, like, let's first start with like what is a smart list?
yeah,
And a smart list is essentially a safe search of people based on specific filters you have on the right side. So, it would be, in simplest form, and we do recommend starting out simple. What stage is that person in, and when was the last time you communicated with that lead? So really, smart lists are for your general follow-up. Rather than having to make a call to a lead, and then every time you make a call, you have to add a task saying follow up in 7 days, and doing that for every single one and it being very time consuming. Well, the system says, okay, great. If this person is in the hot stage and it's been more than 3 days since you last communicated with them, they're automatically going to pop up on here. Now, obviously, with this last communication piece, that is where it's imperative and super helpful for you to be using your follow up boss phone number. So that way, any of your texts and your calls are automatically being logged. So you're not having to come in and remember to manually log communication. And it allows your smart list to stay very clean and efficient for you. And so with that, that's kind of like what a smart list is, but
Yes.
then why they're so important. Again, I think the big aspect here is being able to continuously nurture your leads and your pipeline. It's easy as a realtor to stay on top of your clients who are actively showing, who you are actively showing, who you are have at the top of your mind. But it's those nurtures that we tend to lose. I mean, truthfully, I think every agent who's been in the business for any amount of, a significant amount of time has had happen somebody that they were talking with a year ago, they were a ways out. You see on social media that they bought with somebody else. And a lot of times that's because they maybe met somebody else that was a realtor. Their cousin Joe got licensed. We've all had those scenarios. Whereas these smart lists allow you to stay in front of them, not based off of memory, not based off of having to come into tasks and then work through your tasks. Because as you can see, when we are a task-based system, we can tend to have hundreds and hundreds of overdue tasks. Now, that's not to say tasks aren't important, because I like to say tasks and smart lists can work together, but smart lists are for that general follow-up. Tasks are for those very specific things that you need to remember to do. So, anything to add to that, Lee?
No, I don't think so. I definitely agree. I mean, you're right. Smart lists are more kind of your workflow and your prospecting and all that. And then, tasks would be, hey, call me in the fall, or, do that, like very specific things that have a time and a day. It's funny, we don't even have many action plans running in this account because they're all fake leads. I was quite surprised to see 489 overdue tasks in a fake demo account. So
Yeah.
for what it's worth, if you have overdue tasks, don't feel too bad. I'm not setting a good example. I'll fix that.
Oh, no,
But
it's the perfect example of what not to do.
right, don't do this. So, but no, I think that's great. And yes, again, just to reiterate, you said it very specifically, but smart lists are just saved sets of the criteria that we're going to look at with you guys in more depth for the rest of the session. And then, do you want to go ahead and show how to make or update a smart list, since we're kind of in smart list now, and then we'll dive into the columns and criteria.
Yes, absolutely. So, in here to save a smart list, like if you're creating your own smart list and we were to come in here and say, okay, I want to start fresh, I want to make a new smart list. All you're going to do is come to all people and you're going to choose what you want to filter off of. So if I came in here and said, okay, I want to filter for everybody in the, let's go. We don't have anybody in the attempted contact stage, but I'm sure we have somebody in the nurture stage. So I know I want to set a smart list for people in the nurture stage. Um, and I want to go last communication was more than 90 days ago. Okay. So these are my filters. Now, as you can see, you have a lot of filterable options here. It doesn't just have to be stage and last communication. Well, I tell a lot of my clients, be tracking your leads closing anniversaries. So if we come down to custom fields and we say, okay, their close date um is in the next, or you might say it would be like their closing anniversary is in the next 7 days. You can save that list so you know once a week, hey, here are my past clients who have a closing anniversary coming up, or birthdays. You can create a birthday smart list. There are so many different options in here. So I really recommend taking the time to come through here. If you have your website connected to Follow Up Boss, you can go off of last visit, When was the last time they visited your website? If you know somebody's visited in the last 3 days, oh, we should be hitting them up. Um, so you have your options, you choose your filterable options, and then all you have to do is simply save the smart list. Title it in a way that is going to, be obvious to you and obvious to your team members of what this list is. You want to keep them short and simple. Nothing too crazy long.
Yeah.
But with that, you can always add in a description below. And then you choose who you're going to share that list with. If you're going to share it with everybody, you can just select right up here and simply press save. Now, where those descriptions come into play is going to be here in the manage lists area. Okay, so everybody, including owners, admins, agents, lenders, no matter what their permissions are, they have access to come manage their lists. Now they're only going to see lists that are shared with them, but this is where they can see those descriptions. This is also where you can reorganize your smart lists. So if you've created a smart list that you really like and you want that list to be right at the top, because we say your most important smart lists need to be at the top. And those are the lists that need to be zeroed out on a daily basis. And we'll talk about what smart list zero means upcoming. But with that, if you were to say, okay, I want today's leads ISA to be at the top in my account, I'm just going to drag and drop that right up there.
And this is, I think you said this,
yeah.
but this is by account. So you can do this in your own account. It's not changing anyone else's account, with minor exception, but I think it's fair enough to just, we'll say you can move them around where you want them. Now, that's part of
Yes.
why we use the emojis or the numbering system a lot of times to make it really
Mhm.
easy. We need to just have 1 through 4 first. But yeah, but important to note that you're not messing up someone else's account if you reorder your smart list.
Exactly. And with that, so we talked about how to create a new smart list. Now let's talk about updating a current smart list. So if you were to want to add any filters to a smart list, any additional filters, let's say we were to want to add a stage in here and we were to say, okay, I want to include people that I'm showing homes to, as well as people that I have a listing agreement with and active listing. We could add all of those in and then simply just press update list. Now, another thing, and this was the wow thing that Lee and I were talking about right before this, that is the most easily missed aspect. It's something that I didn't even realize for a long time is you can so there's a couple aspects here. One, you can reorder how your columns are showing up in here. So if you want your last communication and you want the stage to be the first things you're seeing next to the phone number, you can do that. But then we can also add different columns. So we can come here to columns and say, okay, well, I also want to see when their last visit was to my website. And again, we would just scroll over, we'd come find last visit, and we could drag that over. And then you might say, okay, but I want all of this filtered by when was the last time I communicated with them? And we'll say, let's go new to old. Okay, we're just going to go new to old to kind of mix it up. Now, you did all of this work. You probably do not want to do this work again for the next time you come and work the smart list. So if you update the list right here, y'all will see when I come to warm biweekly and then I come back here. I was on clients. When I come back here, this saved. The way I had the smart list set up saved. So you can do that. Just don't forget to press update list when you have it set, especially team leaders for our teams that are on here. When you're working with your smart list and getting your smart list set up for the ones that your team's going to use, make sure to take into consideration how your agents are seeing these smart lists. Are they seeing them based off of the last communication? Are they seeing them based off of the last visit? What order do you want your agents to be seeing the leads? Because that's the order they're going to be working the leads through.
Yeah, I love that. And potentially consider adding that to the name or the description or certainly a training. Like,
Yes.
hey, these are sorted by last communication, new to old. So in this instant, which isn't the greatest example, we're just messing around with stuff we got here. But if you were going to call this list in order, you'd be calling from the people you talked to most recently to the people you talked to the least recently. However, you could easily sort it old to new. You would have the option to save it again. Update is basically save. So now you can say, great, now I'm going to start with the people who I've never talked to or have talked to least recently and move towards the people. So hopefully that shows a little more how valuable this is, because it really is going to affect the order in which they're displayed and potentially the order in which you contact them, and probably what you say if you haven't talked to them ever or in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Let's go ahead and tackle the plus thing though too. Yeah, I'm sure you're headed there, but I worry my brain's going to forget. So as you make changes here, let's just say you have a smart list you really like,
mhm.
but you want another smart list kind of like it. We'll do the warm for ease of example. So let's just say you're like, I like this warm biweekly and I want to leave it alone, but I want another smart list that's similar where, I don't know, let's just say uh pick something randomly here. Yeah, they're tagged import or something, which is a terrible example, but it'll get us to the point. So now we've modified the existing list, but instead of hitting update and replacing warm biweekly with this, if you hit the plus, it's like a save as. It allows you to create
Yes.
a new list that's with similar criteria, similar columns, similar order. Yeah, warm two or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and again, you could share this list with different people. So if you needed a list for your ISAs versus a list for your agents, another cool way to kind of replicate a list without having to start all over and do all these things and select all the things. But just be mindful of that, because you may want to overwrite your existing list or you may not want to, but that's the difference with the plus versus the update.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because, again, there are a lot of lists that you end up wanting to add a little bit to based on how you've customized your setup. You might have just a general past client list, but then maybe that's one where you have your past clients plus closing anniversary, or whatever that may look like. So, with that, again, smart lists super beneficial, but now I'd like to talk about how do we work these? And the most efficient way to work through these, because as I said before, to you guys, this is my favorite aspect because it would have saved me a lot of time as an agent. The biggest thing when you are looking at utilizing a task-based system versus utilizing smart lists is your efficiency of follow-up. So when I'm working through tasks and I'm using Follow-Up Boss as a task-based system, I'm coming in and I'm saying, okay, I need to go to Anthony. Now I have to go and see, okay, Anthony's in the trash stage. I'd look through my notes if I had past notes. I'm doing so much due diligence before I'm ever making that initial call. Well, with smart lists, again, because they're telling you exactly who you're calling and why you're calling them based on the filters on the right side, it allows you to be very efficient. So if I were to just come in here and add myself as a lead, and we are going to say, okay, we're going to put me in the hot stage. and I'm going to come in here. So now I'm a part of our hot 2 times a week smart list. What I love is you can just simply, if you have the calling feature in Follow Up Boss, you can create a call list out of this. And there is very minimal thought that has to go into making your calls because, again, the system's already telling you who to follow up with and why you're following up with them. And so I can say, great, I want to call all 6 of these people in the list, and I'm going to create a new call list. And what's going to happen is it's immediately going to start calling me. Now, while I'm waiting for the person to pick up, I can see what my last notes were, if anything. And we have a conversation. And as you can see, this call's being logged, the conversation's being recorded. And I can say, okay, great. We're done with the conversation. This call was automatically logged. I am no longer on this smart list. So that's what I meant when I said it's really beneficial to be using the Follow Up Boss dialer. So that way you're not having to remember to come in and manually log your calls. But as you can see, we don't automatically go to the next person. So in the call list. So if you need to send a follow-up text, a follow-up email, update this lead stage, whatever it is you need to do before moving on to the next person, you can do that. And then as soon as you're ready to make that next call, you just press next and it'll automatically start dialing the next person.
It's not
So,
as scary as it sounds. I think everybody hears dialer and they're like, oh no, it's going to call everybody at once. It's very simple. And as you can see also when Katie hits begin dialer or begin call list, it hops right into the record. So I just want to reiterate using background, which for some reason we have pushed way down to the bottom, but using background, making good notes, doing those things here is always going to help you when you can jump right into this, look at it while you're talking to them. Oh yeah, we talked 2 weeks ago about that you were doing some credit repair or whatever that is. It's really amazing. The other great thing
yeah.
beyond doing that I recommend, it's kind of what you just said, but I love to start a follow-up email or text while you're on the phone with them. Because if you're talking to them, oh, let me send that over. Oh, I'll do that. You can literally start to write that email or text while you're talking to them instead of hanging up and going, wait, what did I say I was going to send? Or what was that thing? And frankly, it's just good best practice to follow up a conversation with a text or an email.
Yeah. And so I'm going to throw out a little tidbit for y'all because this is really exciting. We just got official word.
Ooh.
So Follow Up Boss, for those of you that don't know, we have been working on AI transcription for your calls, meaning that those of you that have call recording turned on, AI is going to be able to transcribe your entire conversation, but there will also be a call summary as well as suggested action items for after the call. And that is officially being released on July 1st. So if you don't have call recording turned on, definitely recommend turning that on. That takes a whole other step of what Lee was saying out of your hands because you no longer even have to worry about taking your own notes. AI is going to have that entirely for you. I, as a success manager, I love this feature because it's literally like Katie said she will do this.
Right.
And I'm like, this is amazing. It is
It's
telling me
really good.
exactly what I said.
The summary itself is really fantastic. I mean, I can't believe how good it is. Because it'll even give a quick, like, they chatted about the weather for 2 minutes and then definitive stuff, but it's really good.
Yeah, I had one. It was so funny. I had one with one of my clients. We were chatting about golf in Mexico because my husband and I just got back from Mexico. And he was like, "How's the golfing?" And it was really great. Like AI picked up all of that. So again, when you're having conversations with your clients where they divulge that personal information that will allow you to better build the relationship next time you talk with them. Oh, I have my daughter's birthday this weekend. Can you give me a call in 2 weeks? We'll be settled down. Great. You're going to see that note and be able to pull that out of your back pocket the next time you talk with them.
Right.
So
And make
again,
sure
I
you make a
really recommend.
task or do whatever it is
Yes.
appropriate. But yes,
Yes.
so
Yeah. So being able to utilize those notes is going to be huge. But like Lee said, if they say, hey, call me in 2 weeks versus it just being like, I just want general follow-up or just give me a call back later, that's where we can come in and we can add a task. But what I want to point out to you guys is
this
this
is why I
entire
have so many
time, Lee and I have
tasks
been
from office hours. That's why I have so many tasks.
Office hours gives you a lot of tasks. But what I want to point out to you guys is Lee and I have been talking this whole time. I could be going into reporting, showing you guys a ton of different things, but as you can see at the top, we can still always go right back to that call list. So if you get distracted in what you're doing in the middle of a call list and you start, somebody else emails you or texts you something important and you got to respond to that right away, you can always come back to your call list and remember exactly where you left off rather than again, because it's here, it's right here. It's reminding you that you are in the middle of this call list. So for me, myself, who can be a little squirrely and easily get like roped into the next thing, I love call lists because it's like great. It's always bringing you right back to what we said and we committed to of needing to focus on. And then if you had called through your entire list, this list would be zeroed out because you made some kind of communication with them. And then in 3 days, if you haven't continuously had communication or you haven't updated their stage, these people would repopulate onto this smart list.
Absolutely. We have a great question I want to go ahead and tackle. And I think it's a great question. And I want to answer it in a few ways. But somebody asked about, is there a reason to have smart lists if you don't have the dialer or if you're not using it? And I would say that's
Yes.
a massive resounding yes, because the smart lists are simply, I hate to say this because I think it scares some people. Follow Boss is a big
Mm-hmm.
spreadsheet. You're controlling
Yeah.
here what you want to see, how big the columns are. You're filtering and sorting it, but it's a big spreadsheet. If you have 10,000 leads and you open it up and all you have is 10,000 leads, then what are you going to do? What are you supposed to do? Just like pick somebody to call or make up some names and search Bob and call all the Bobs in your database? Like there's no logic to it. And between stages, and if
Mm-hmm.
I was alone on a desert island with two follow boss features or one, it would be stages and smart lists because those are the
Mm-hmm.
things that power the entire system. And so I would say absolutely, like even if you're just emailing them, even if you're calling them on your cell phone, you should be logging it in Follow Up Boss for this to work right. But yeah, a list of past clients, a list of birthdays, a list of people in your sphere, a list of people in your tennis group or whatever. I think smart, if you're not utilizing your smart list, I would highly recommend a deep dive into smart lists first and foremost, because they're very useful and powerful
Yeah.
as far as telling you what to do instead of you having to figure out what to do every day.
Exactly. And again, really to just dive in on this a little bit deeper is the fact that even if you're not using the call function and you don't have the calling feature, you can still come in and you can manually log that you had a call with that person. So if I came in and I said, "Great, I had a call with Amy." Now obviously I manually logged it. And you can manually log this from your mobile app as well. So if you're on the go, you have a quick chat with Amy, you can log that from your mobile app. Um, she's still going to fall off the smart list. So again, you can utilize the smart list in the same way. You're just not going to have the calling list option, which is fine. It's no big deal. You're still able to utilize the system to tell you who you need to be following up with and to be able to really allow yourself to manage your pipeline.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, seriously, like smart list, smart list, smart list. That's why we do a whole bunch of different webinars and things on smart list. I'm answering some questions now. I'm gonna drop a link to a
Yeah.
playlist of all our prior office hours because we have lots of different sessions on even different things like smart list zero in particular, or setting some of these things up, or using call lists, things like that. So I'm going to drop after I answer this next question, I'll drop a link to all the office hours ever. If you want to go deeper on any of these specific things, we've definitely got that content for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as Lee is answering those questions, kind of want to talk about, so I mentioned in here the ability to create your own smart list utilizing custom fields. That's when I was talking about birthdays or tracking closing anniversaries. So with that, if you are the owner of the account, you have the ability to come in on the admin side and come to, and it looks like, oh, right here, custom fields. So you can choose specific custom fields. If you are somebody that does a lot of events, maybe. I worked on a real estate team that was a very event heavy team. And we had like our VIP list, and then we had like kind of just tiers based on what events we would be inviting these people to. So you can add different custom fields that you might want to create very specific smart lists to that are very specialized to how you run your business and be able to create smart lists off of those. So I always think, that's a really easily missed aspect is the part that you can create your own custom fields. That is the best part about Follow Up Boss, again, is it's so customizable for what's important to you and what you're doing. So with that, don't forget that you can utilize those things to then create some really great smart lists. Um, that's just one of my favorite tidbits. And my personal favorite, though, like I said, is that closing anniversary smart list. If you guys aren't sending out CMAs, those competitive or comparative market analysis. Well,
Yeah, what
let's
is
go
the
with it.
plural of analysis? Analysis
I don't
is,
know. I
it
know.
has an
I'm like, we're
apostrophe at
just
the
gonna
end. I know that.
we're gonna just move on from that.
CMAs, CMAs.
Yeah. Yeah, the CMAs, exactly. I'm just like, that's why I said CMA to start. If you guys aren't sending out CMAs on closing anniversaries, definitely would recommend doing so rather than just sending a client like happy closing, happy 1 year in your home, happy 2 years in your home. Like, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your story. That's already a step above what most of the agents in your market are doing. But if you can provide further value for your clients and saying, hey, happy home anniversary. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your story. I also just wanted to let you know how much value you have in your home at this time. Because a lot of your clients who bought 2, 3, 4 years ago are in a place where they are sitting on so much equity. And a lot of people, again, like this is a fear. A lot of people are afraid to sell because, right, like I was telling Lee, we have a home with a 3% interest rate. And I'm like, I love that house. I never want to sell it. But at some point, we are going to outgrow the home. And at some point, how can we leverage that equity to maybe keep that home, turn it into a rental, and still move on to the next home? It allows you to open up these kinds of conversations with your past clients to see, hey, maybe they've had a kid since you last saw them and had the opportunity to connect with them. So that's one of my favorite coaching tidbits and utilizing smart lists, and just really utilizing it to allow yourself to create that repeat business. Because again, Follow Up Boss is not just for your new leads. Follow-up boss can be used very, very well to create that long-term repeat book of business that ultimately every agent wants.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you went to custom fields because I meant to mention that when you drop down the columns and we have all of those things. But one more quick note on custom fields, and there's also several sessions in the link I just dropped on this. That's part of the beauty of the custom fields is A, you can create what you want, but B, it's very important to choose the proper type because if you don't choose a date type, you're not going to be able to say, alert me 4 days before this date, or make a smart list of people with upcoming birthdays or date or anniversaries or whatever that is. And you can't change the format after you make it. So I just wanted to mention, we won't go into great detail on it, but the type really, 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 really matters. If it's how many homes they've bought with you, using the number format will allow you to say, show me everybody who's bought more than 2, but less than 6. So the formatting in this is what's going to control your ability to sort and filter by the type of data. So the TLDR reason answer is if it's a date thing, just be sure you use the date format to be able to run automations, power your smart lists, all those good things.
Yeah, awesome. And then, so one of the last tips that I have that is really, really big, and we are really focusing on coaching to our teams is smart list management. Making sure we don't have smart lists that look like this for everyone.
Right.
Now, we totally understand there when you are especially running a larger team, you're going to have a lot of different smart lists in here because you might have smart lists that you're just sharing with your ISAs, and then smart lists that you're just sharing with your buyer's agents and your listing agents and those kinds of things. But ultimately, on an agent level, we don't want to see more than 9 smart lists that we are trying to have them work through on a daily basis, because you really have to sit down and say, what is the reality of me actually working through all of these smart lists on a daily basis? Because the goal is smart list 0. So if you have too many smart lists, it's then saying, okay, how can I begin to condense these? Well, what we're going to tell you first and foremost is go look at your stages. Do you have repeat stages that could be condensed together? If we were to come in here and we were to look at our stages, we'd say, definitely could clean up these stages. And through cleaning up stages, it'll allow you to be able to clean up your smart lists. So as Lee mentioned, your 2 biggest aspects within the system, stages and smart lists, go so hand in hand together. So I really encourage you, if you're listening to this call, to go in and make sure your smart lists are working and efficient, because also we have a preset list, or we have preset smart lists for you guys. If you've never created a smart list yourself, you're going to have the standard ones that come with your follow-up box automatically. If you have changed your stages at all and you have messed with your stages, you likely need to go in and update your smart lists. So that's a big piece of advice I have for all of you that are on this call, to go and make sure your smart lists are actually showing what they need to be showing, because it might say hot 2 times a week, but your stage might be blank here if you don't even have a hot stage. You might have completely renamed that, and it's like, oh, shoot, I need to go in and add the appropriate stage.
Yeah, it's always good to audit these. I mean, I know it's kind of it's hard enough to set them up, but I think going back and auditing these, how many are there? Actually, let's show one more thing. If you could go back to manage lists, this is a little more for the owner account or like a team lead or whatnot. Technically, admins can do it, but you want to be mindful of doing this. One of the things I do a lot with people, if we come in here and go, oh, wow, you guys have a lot of smart lists, but they're like, well, we're not really using that, but maybe some of our agents are, or maybe somebody else is, or whatever. One of the things you can do, you can't do this oddly with the native Follow Boss ones that come with the account, which vary over time because they've changed over time a little bit. So it depends on when you open your account. But you can actually see here on that warm biweekly, you can see I changed that previously to private. And so what that does is that makes it where only I, because I'm in the owner account as the owner, if I change it to private, it hides the smart list from everybody else, but it doesn't delete it. So again, if you're like, oh, I'm worried about deleting all of these, like maybe somebody's using it, maybe I'm using it and forgot I need to use it or whatever. One of the things you can do is, again, as the owner, click on that everyone, and you can modify who can see it. So if it's like, well, my admin staff needs to see it, or one of my teams, if you're a platform user, needs to see it, but I don't need all the agents to see this anymore, you can change it to private, which I think is a great medium between just deleting stuff, especially if really it might be relevant after you delete it. Somebody's like, oh, I kept all my hot leads in nurture or stale or something dumb. But that way you haven't deleted the list altogether. You just kind of taken off the radar. Then maybe after 6 months, if nobody's like, hey, I really missed that smart list, you can delete it. But that is a little bit of an easy button to help you clean up without just hitting delete. And another thing I do, which is super nerdy, but bears mentioning, if you're doing that or you're worried about it, I'll loom my own screen doing it just so I have a historical record of like, what was that smart list in case somebody goes, oh no, I need it. So there's some little tips and tricks there to kind of hide or do these without fully deleting them or to record what they were before you delete them.
Yeah. And as Lee mentioned, again, auditing. So if you just want to come and do a quick audit, you can see the totals, how many people are living in these lists. So if you're like, okay, we definitely have a smart list that has a lot of people living in here. Let's go take a look at this smart list and see, okay, this is what it looks like. Is there anything we can do to make this list stronger and allow it to be a list that is actually workable? And when I say workable, what I mean is when you strictly just have a filter like pawn, or if you have one like clients where it is active clients. Now, this is a list that's going to show you your clients, and there are certain times where that is necessary just to have a list that just shows you everybody in a specific stage. But it's not going to ever be a list that you're zeroing out. So if you think it's something that, hey, like I want to see this zeroed out on a consistent basis, that's where we add additional filters like last communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So, and again, I know we said it a few times, but just to reiterate, people disappearing from this when you call them is the concept of smart list zero. The idea that there's some filter that says last communication was 3 days. So if you call them today, you have called them in the last 3 days, so they go away, but they come back 3 days later. To your point, Katie, I definitely agree. There is a time and a place for a static list. Clients is actually a good example. Hopefully you're contacting your clients all the time, so you don't necessarily need a filter to remind you to follow up unless it's like a listing that you need to update once a week or whatever. But it might be, I just need to lay eyes on these people and make sure they're good. So we understand that it's potentially a combination of both. But the Smart List Zero is such a good prospecting workflow type of thing. I just think we, in some sense, can't talk about it enough.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, last communication, what that incorporates is the last individual email you sent them, the last text you sent them, or the last call made. And not just that you sent, also that you received. So with that, if you have a conversation with somebody, they called your FUB number, you have a 2-minute conversation with them, that's going to count as last communication. Now, with that, for drip campaigns, emails that go out via action plan, those do not count as last communication. So knowing that, that's when I say individual emails, batch emailing, that does not count as last communication. It has to be a single individual email going to that person for it to count as last communication.
Yeah, absolutely important to note. And there is also, if you're working with lenders or collaborators in the system, do be mindful that it's unfortunately not my last communication. It is last communication. It's kind of a rarer use case. But if you're sharing some of these leads in a sense, or if they're in a pond, just be mindful of that. I think it makes sense for it to work that way. But important to note, it's not going to be just your last communication with them. And to Katie's point, it's outbound and inbound. But ultimately said and done, it works like it's supposed to and does what it does. But if you're a more advanced user,
Yeah.
I feel like it bears mentioning that. But again, at a
Yes.
high level, the idea is setting a simple workflow based on what you want it to be, adjusting these columns. So ideally, you don't have to scroll way over. Somebody really blew my mind with this. I logged into somebody's account once, and their smart list columns were so short, they were
Mhm.
longer than they needed to be just to fill the page. And I really just it hit me how good an idea that is to just if you have a calling list, you don't need a whole bunch of stuff. And if the criteria is spelled out in the smart list, you don't need a bajillion columns. We don't care what tags
Mhm.
they have or what custom fields they have. If it's just a hey, call these people today. So just simply name, which has name and source on it, phone, stage, maybe last
Mhm.
communications handy just to see at a glance, like, oh, I haven't called them in a while. Don't be afraid to keep these super simple. You don't have to scroll to use these. You can always hop back to all people and or just add columns. But don't be afraid to keep these
Yeah.
simple. I think it's really valuable, and I would definitely advise people to do that.
Yeah. And the last teeny tiny pro tip I have that I didn't mention, for those of you who are going to be working a smart list but not utilizing it as a call list, you can just come in, click on the singular person, and you can click through the smart list right up here. So you can move on to the next person just by simply clicking next here. So, being able to just work through in that same order without having to create a calling list, you can still do that super easily, and it's very straightforward.
I
I
can't
think the
believe we
biggest
didn't say
thing,
I can't believe we didn't say that earlier when somebody asked about why smart lists. I'm like,
yes,
and
yes, it's
also
see,
depending on your machine and your browser and all the above, your arrow keys may toggle through that as well. So you may be able to use your right and left arrow keys once you're in that list also.
yeah. We do have keyboard shortcuts in Follow Up Boss. So if you're ever wondering what your shortcuts are, you can come in here and see this. We do always say, for those of you on here, Chrome is you're gonna get the best functionality out of Follow Up Boss using Chrome. But it doesn't mean you can't use other browsers as well. So yeah, just some little tidbits for you to leave you with.
Love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I think if
Yeah.
let's just say somebody's maybe watching and they're like, I really haven't done any of this, or I really this seems confusing or whatever. Like, what's good advice for somebody on either how or maybe just why it's so important to start using these? And you don't have to create 20 right off the bat either. You can make one and go around.
Yes. Yeah. So first and foremost, how to start using these, go evaluate your stages. Look at your stages and say, okay, how often do I want to be following up with people in each stage? From there, you have that written out and you can easily just come to your all people section and start creating your smart list and saying, okay, I know everybody that is in the lead stage. I want to be communicating with them um, every day for the first 10 days that they're in my system. And then from there, I might want to communicate with people that are in the lead stage every 7 days or whatever that looks like for you. Going through and setting that. And again, the why. Well, I think that's for you to establish as an agent. Why are you doing this? Why are you a realtor? Right? It is so important. I had the opportunity to talk with John Cheplack the other week, and the biggest thing he told me, because we were talking about something, is why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And so remembering your why. Why are you a realtor? Well, a lot of people's why is you want to help people have a successful home buying and selling process. Um, I've been through it in myself where it wasn't great. It wasn't a great experience. And so that was a huge why for me as a realtor of like, I want to actually be able to provide an amazing experience for people. Well, remember that on the days that you're working that nurture smart list, because
Right.
nobody, I mean, let's be honest. That's like the least favorite part of being a realtor is prospecting and working those long-term leads. But if you're not working with them, they could be working with that agent that is strictly in the business for the money. And they don't really give two two cruds about how the deal gets done. They just want it to get done. And ultimately, you say, okay, hey, I'm making this call. I am following up with these people. I am working my smart list because I want to be whatever your why is.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think, the other thing I meant to say earlier, and we can take us out with this, but I think a lot of people get into Follow Boss and, a lot of us like it, right? A lot of us like, oh, we can choose this, move this. I get that people didn't get into real estate to sit on a computer, but I want to reiterate, I think we say it a lot, but I don't know, we always say it super overtly. This really is what we're talking about now, specifically more about your prospecting and things like that. I mean, if you can prospect all day, that's awesome, but that's not the expectation, right? The goal of this and the setup is to call these 8 people and then go sell a house or go to a listing appointment or go to a thing. So I think sometimes, especially when those of us who are now out of production and are doing follow-up boss stuff, I'm sure people think like, oh, well, that's great, but they're just computer nerds, which is probably somewhat true. However, this is really designed to optimize the use of your time as a real estate agent. I don't want you to sit on a computer all day and play on follow balls. I mean, I kind of do,
Mhm.
but I want you to call 10 people and then go have coffee with somebody or go do a pop by or go do something in the business. So I just think it's important to mention that, we're not expecting people or your team members to spend bajillions of hours here. We want to give an easy button for, let me hit up 8 to 10 to 15 people and then go about my day and field those calls back over the
Mhm.
course of the day. So I think you're probably going to hear me start saying a lot. That's my current thing is like, this isn't to sit here all day and do this. It's to
Yeah.
continually move your business forward a little bit every day.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Just 1% better every day.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm going to clean up my tasks. Next time we have an office hours, I won't say zero, but there will be fewer tasks. Well, appreciate you guys being on, Katie. You're awesome as always. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank you all. Have a good one.